we are going to talk about inheriting from the paddle class now. There was one thing, by the way, that I forgot to do, but you had to do in the last little programming thing, and that is we can also do a draw paddle, and our draw paddle should be pretty clear given that we have left corner X and Y and paddle width and paddle height. It should be fairly straightforward how we make that rectangle, right? All right, so now we're gonna do the computer paddle and the user paddle, okay? And both of these, so I made two new files. I can name one computer paddle, one user paddle. I created a class called user paddle, and user paddle extends paddle, okay? And I've created a class called computer paddle that also extends paddle, okay? Extends is our keyword, meaning that user paddle and computer paddle both inherit from paddle. And with that, they get all of the methods that you defined in paddle already, and they get all of these private variables, but they have to access them through getters and setters, okay? Just like, so it's external to the class still, and so you have to use getters and setters to access them. A child is external to its parent, right? Even though it inherits from it. So that makes sense. All right, so what that means, so what does that mean? Well, you've already implemented the constructor. Let's start with the user paddle. You've already implemented the constructor. You've already implemented how it gets drawn. You've implemented the getters and setters. There's one thing you haven't implemented, though. And if we hover over this, it gives you a hint to it. So it says the type user paddle must implement the inherited abstract method update position, right? In fact, we made that method abstract, meaning it had no body in it, meaning that if we want it, so we can't create any objects of paddle. And if we want to create an object of user paddle, we don't want it to be abstract. We need to define the abstract methods in paddle, okay? And so the abstract method, so when we're defining a function in the parent class or redefining a function in the parent class, we typically use the override keyword, okay? And that's to let the compiler know that we're intending on overriding a method. Now the compiler, this isn't required, but the compiler will actually check to see if your method is actually correctly overriding the method in the parent class. How could it not override the method in the parent class? A lot of different ways. We could name it the wrong thing, and then it would look in the parent class and say, hey, there's no function named this. You're not overriding anything. We could give it a different parameter list, and then it would look at the function in the parent class and say, wait, the parameters it takes in are this for this particular abstract function in the parent class, and your implementation is taking in different parameters. This is not an override. So we'll get in the habit of doing this. This is good programming practice, but note that if you forget to do it and your program works, that's why, because it is not required. And sometimes you'll see people short-arm this and not do it. It's not great, but it happens. All right, so what do we have? We have update position, right, that we have to implement for our user paddle. And the way we will implement update position, well, the user paddle, and it's not abstract anymore, right, because we're giving it a body. The user paddle, we will say, will follow the mouse. And in processing, we have mouse X and mouse Y. All right, and those are special variables. And you can look them up. They're real simple. They always have the position of the mouse in them. Remember, our paddle only goes up and down in Pong. It doesn't go left and right. So mouse X and mouse Y, you only need to use one of them. And you are going to update the user paddle position, it's center X and center Y. I mean, not center X and center Y. It's corner left X and corner left Y based on mouse X and mouse Y. All right? Keeping in mind, you only want it to move up and down, right? So you don't want it to move left and right. Okay, so one of those positions needs to be locked, all right? And so you only need to use one of these, mouse X and mouse Y. Figure out which one you need to use. And another kind of little hiccup here, which isn't a huge hiccup, but should work. I mean, should be fairly clear, is if I have my, that's not gonna work. If I have my paddle here, right, and I have corner X and corner Y, all right, and then corner for the user paddle, and my mouse is down here. So really, my mouse, I'd want to be somewhere in the middle of the paddle. That would, make sense when it's moving up and down. And so the corner X and corner Y is going to be some transform of that. You go up and you go over a little bit. If you don't do that and you actually just hard code the mouse position to the corner, it's not a big deal. It actually will still play fine and it'll feel good. But you could think of both of those things as implications of what you're doing. All right, good. So now the final thing we would have to do is we'd have to create the computer paddle. Similarly, the computer paddle should override the position, okay? But how should it override the position? Well, the way we're going to override the position is we're going to take in the ball's position, okay? And you can figure out which ball position value we have to take in, whether it's ball's position X or Y. That's the question. Okay, but we can't take it in to update position. Why is that? Well, remember, update position's an override. We have to override update position to implement this abstract parent class paddle, right? We're forced to update it, but if we pass in a parameter for one of the ball positions, it will ball pos X, let's say. It's not X, you can probably guess that. But if we pass it in for one of the ball positions, he said, giving away it says, this method must override a supertype method, okay? With supertype meaning the parent class. Supertype is the superclass. So it doesn't because update position in the parent class doesn't take in this integer ball X. So that's what this override gives us. It gives us this error when we try to override something, but we don't do it correctly. So we can't pass in the position. And so what we'll do is we'll make a new variable. Okay, we're going to make it a private variable and then give getters and setters to it called current ball position. Current ball whatever position, because we don't need both positions, we just need one of them. And what our paddle's going to do is it's going to follow the ball position, okay? So here's the ball. I have a ball somewhere. Here's the ball, and here's the paddle, right? And this thing's gonna be just following the ball position, okay? So the computer's gonna be unbeatable because it's always gonna be locked straight to the ball position. How do we do that? Well, we come up with a private variable. We give it getters and setters. So if it's moving up and down, right? I'm just gonna say current ball Y position. Let's just be clear. Okay, if it's using, we could say, void public void set. I guess we don't need a getter. We just need a setter, and it sets the current ball Y position. Okay. And you can think about why we don't need a getter. We just need a setter. And if we're going to do that, it better take in a current y ball. Okay. And notice that our computer paddle now has its own implementation of update position, and it also has its own private variable, current ball y position. So it has all of the variables of paddle, okay, and it has its own special variable, current y ball position, that user paddle doesn't need because it's going to be using mouse x and mouse y, okay. And so we should be almost finished with this. If you implement this and you implement this, you should be able to get pretty close to being done. We just have one more thing, which is working on the ball collision. See you in the next video. Oh, and then a resetting. But both of those things are doable. I'll see you in the next video.